Okay, it's 12 o'clock at my place, so let's get started because we're running. So we'll make sure we're trying to stick to time if we possible can. Warmly welcome to everyone. So nice to see you all here. Welcome to this workshop today, Feminine Health and Hygiene. My name is Linnea and I'm representing Zero Waste Stockholm Association. And I'm here today with the lovely Nikki from Ecomini, who's going to be my co-host today.
Hello.
So lovely to see you guys here on this International Women's Day. So we're doing a workshop collaboration. Let's start, and people can join in when they come. Let's get this. There we go. And this workshop will be recorded, so if you not want to participate in that, feel free to turn your video off. Hope you can see my screen, and let's get started. Oh, sorry. So just before we start, mute yourself to avoid any background noise, so we can hear so you can hear us talking. Buttons to switch to individual layout depending on what you want to do with your screen. And do not hesitate to write any questions in the Q&A. We will get to those in the end. So we will unfortunately not be picking up any questions during the presentation. Let's collect these until the end and then go through them. So hopefully you can stick around till then. Great. So as I mentioned in the beginning, Zero Waste Stockholm is where we're located. Zero Waste Stockholm is a non-profit association. We started back in 2018 with a purpose to transform the waste industry in and around Stockholm. We're doing a lot of collaborations with several companies that distribute package-free, local and organic items. We also do a lot of collaborations with other associations. If you're in Sweden, you might have heard of Naturskyddsföreningen and Konsumtion and such. We also want to educate people through meetups, workshops, such as this one today, and social media. So please follow us there if you haven't already found our channels, and make sure you keep a lookout for upcoming events as well.
Hi, so I'm Nikki from Ecomini. Happy Women's Day to all the lovely ladies here today. So Ecomini is a small company based in Stockholm. I'm the human on the other side of Ecomini. I started the company last year, and when I started out, I thought every company needs a mission. What is my mission? My mission is to make cloth mainstream again. I'm focusing on reusable diapers for babies, and mostly also so diapers and sanitary pads for women. I'm trying really hard to help as many as possible people switch to cloth confidently by equipping and empowering with information and knowledge. And then also, of course, providing good quality, reasonably priced products so that it's available and accessible to everyone. Vaginas. When we advertise this workshop, Linnea and I, we say that this one is for the ladies. We probably should have said that this one is for the owners of vaginas, because this is what this workshop really is about. Our vaginas do things that make us want to consume certain products so we can get on with our everyday life. When we're looking at it from an environmental or zero waste perspective, even if we're looking at it from a cost perspective, our vaginas are pretty big consumers of products, because what they do is they period, and we are often seeing women with some kind of urinary incontinence or bladder leakage. We're talking postpartum bleeding or postpartum leaks, vaginal discharge. We're talking about ovulation secretions. All of this together is leading to enormous consumption of single-use items and single-use plastics. So often when we're thinking about cloth sanitary pads, we're focusing a lot on periods. When we start looking at the statistics and we start looking at the numbers, we actually see that urinary incontinence is a much bigger culprit when it comes to fueling the consumption of these items. Urinary incontinence is something that is hushed. We don't talk about it. We are shamed. Often when we want to mention it, the reality, though, is it's extremely common. I don't think we realize how common it is. It's underdiagnosed. It's underreported. I was listening to a fantastic study by a guy called Christopher Tani, who is a medical doctor at UCLA Health. He's a specialist, 100% focused on urinary incontinence. What we see from his study is that it's around 2/3 of women have a lifetime risk of suffering from some kind of urinary incontinence. This percentage increases as we get older, but it can really start at any age. Often when we're thinking urinary incontinence or when we're thinking about bladder leaking, we're thinking about grandmas. But the honest truth is that if you're looking in the age group of 20s to 30s, 30% of women are affected by some kind of bladder leaking. When you look back into the age group of between 40 to 50, 40% of women are affected. Age 65 plus, over 50% of women are affected. And then when you look at elderly women, it's over 70% of women that are actually affected. I don't understand why we are silent on this topic. And when women are contacting me to talk about pads, because I'm always offering advice and saying to women, just contact me, I'll help you choose the right one. Whenever a woman contacts me to talk about a pad that she wants to use for incontinence, there's always the sense I get that she's feeling ashamed when she wants to contact me, and I want to say, no, let's stop that. It's so common, and we need to start having a dialogue about this. Then the next sort of thing that we're really using these products for is our periods. Periods are often viewed as a problem that needs solving rather than a natural state, which is also very strange when you consider that a woman, when you add up all the days, is actually perioding or menstruating for between 7 and 8 years of her life, spanning over a 40-year period. Every single day, around 800 million women around the world are menstruating. Producers of single-use products profit massively from decades and decades of purchases. So they are absolutely motivated when it comes to how they're going to market their products to us. Disposable products are being marketed to us as the modern way. But when we start looking into the message that advertisers are telling us, we start seeing what are they actually telling us about our bodies, what are they telling us about the way we should feel about our bodies and the different functions that our bodies do. It tells a whole different story, and this is where the conversation starts becoming interesting to me. So, early advertising. Excuse the terrible quality of this photo. This is an advert from the 1870s. So when we look back on advertising, I must actually just pause for a moment and say when we're looking at the advertising, we're going to be looking at menstrual product advertising, although really the same can be said for all uses of these products, sanitary products, which we know are actually used for many more uses than just catching menstrual blood. But from this advertising from the 1870s, this is an advertisement for menstruation product, but there's absolutely no mention made of what it's for. Menstruation was so completely taboo back then, you couldn't even say the word. Now, at least we've come a long way. We are in a society now where we can say menstruation or period without someone getting a heart attack, but we've got a very long way to come. We are still stuck in a culture that perpetuates a sense of menstrual secrecy and shame. So what the advertising industry is telling us repeatedly is that our periods need to be kept. Advertising campaign embarrassment, for heaven forbid somebody realizing that we're actually menstruating. Oh, P.S. I'm menstruating right now. Just saying. It's okay. Yeah, so heaven forbid someone should know that we are on our period. We are told that these products are virtually undetectable. They offer discreet protection. And this keeps suggesting that menstruation needs to be kept a secret. This, for me, when I'm looking at this, becomes very worrying when I think that this is the message that we are telling young girls. So from the very earliest age, girls are feeling that their periods are shameful, it needs to be hidden, and it has to be kept secret. The next thing the industry keeps telling us is that somehow our vaginas smell bad. Vaginal deodorant is a really good example of the industry inventing a problem so that they can sell us a solution. In the 1900s, Lysol advertised that husbands would actually leave their wives if the wives didn't wash out the vaginas, like by some kind of douching with what turned out to be really poisonous chemicals, and that if they didn't do so, it would be intimate neglect. This message, unfortunately, persists today. Often advertisers are focusing on this idea of cleansing and deodorizing. The message that comes through to us is that our periods are dirty and smelly, and that our vaginas are dirty and smelly. We are trying to be caught into consuming and purchasing scented pads and scented bags for putting the pads in. The interesting thing, actually, and I realized this only after I switched to using cloth pads, is when you're using a cloth pad, the smell is completely different from when you're using a disposable pad, and you start realizing that the scent that product is trying to hide by making you use a scented pad or a scented bag is actually creating the strange scent that they're trying to hide, which is just convoluted in itself. The reality is that most vaginal odors are completely normal and completely healthy. The next message that advertisers want to tell us is that somehow their tampons are going to make us really good at sports. Advertisers like to use these overly happy, super active, super athletic images to sell their products. This message can be empowering to some women if you can feel that it's possible to go on with your active lifestyle during your menstruation, but it can also be highly triggering when perioding and menstruation very often feels like this. In reality, menstruation more often looks like this. It's not always fun. It's not always very exciting to be having a period, unless you get to test a really cool new pad that you just sewed yourself. Then it's exciting. But often it's uncomfortable. It can be painful. And at the same time, the industry and the message we're being fed, it makes us feel uncomfortable and unnatural in our own bodies. We're living in a culture that silences and shames periods, bladder leaks, vaginal discharge, and normal healthy odors. This keeps being shamed by the industry, and that's really not cool. This shapes the way that women perceive their bodies. And this also shapes the way that women consume products, because when you feel that menstruation is shameful, when you feel that having some kind of bladder leaking or discharge or whatever is shameful and you need to hide it, you fall into just wanting to consume what the advertisers are telling you. You can hide it, it's discreet, you can literally just, nobody's going to see the wrapper or hear the wrapper. It won't crinkle, you can just in the toilet cubicle throw it away and not think about it again.
Until you reach the dark side of disposables is when you start thinking about it again. Thanks, Nikki. First off, waste is an enormous problem with sanitary products. In Sweden alone, we have 500 million sanitary pads, tampons, and liners used per year in total, which is a massive amount. If you put them all together, they will measure about 82,000 kilometers, which is circling the Earth more than twice, which is enormously a lot of waste. 125 kilos of waste per woman during the full menstruation period, so during those 7 to 8 years of consecutive consumption. And that is just for the menstruation period. As Nikki mentioned, if you use these products for other things, such as urinary leaks or other, then you will have more waste, obviously, for that. 10,000 tons of waste is flushed down into the sewage system each year in Sweden, and people are constantly finding pads and tampons in the sewage system where they don't belong. They're clogging up and they're causing a lot of havoc. The next part is the environment. A lot of these products in other countries are washing up in landfills. They're washing up in waterways around the world. The plastics and tampons and pads are part of the cover of the product, and the lining and the applicator for the tampons, as well as the absorption part of the product. It take a lot of time to decompose, about 500 to 800 years to decompose. The chemicals in these products are not actually studied that well, so we're not really sure what the chemicals would do to us. We are the with the research and study group. The producers are also able to use the eco label on products even only if a small part of the cotton used is organic. So the entire product doesn't have to be organic for them to use the eco label. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. There are no set standards also for sanitation products. A lot of companies do their own testing. Sometimes these products are not actually even tested as sanitary products. They're also tested on the skin or tested when being ingested. Which is really weird considering that's not when they're used, when they're actually being used by the consumer. These products are also lacking a table of contents. You don't really know what is actually in the product when you're buying them. There's no such table on the product package. There's no studies on long-term effects of using disposable sanitation products. We don't know what will happen. No studies on correlations between products and urinary tract infections, other infections, toxic shock syndrome, which can happen from tampons being forgotten about in the body, which is also something that's very undercover. People don't know about this. A lot of obstetricians talk about these problems being huge, that they can see correlations between the use of sanitary products and infections among women. Also, fiber from tampons can fall off during use due to dryness because the tampons are created to absorb any type of moisture or any type of liquid in the body, which can make you really dry. And then some fiber could fall off and will be left in the body and cause irritation or inflammation. And financial cost, of course, is massive. Sweden puts a 25% tax on sanitation products, which can be compared to restaurant services only having 12% tax on their products. So they're really made expensive. On average, a disposable sanitation products will cost you around 70,000 kronor in a lifetime. Once again, only for the use of them as menstrual sanitation products, not if you use them for other health issues as well. So that cost for them go to a higher amount.
So, where do we go from here? Number one. First of all, we're going to smash the culture of silence and shame. Honestly, ladies, I want to encourage each single one of you to start dialogue in your communities, start dialogues with your friends, start dialogues with your daughters, start talking. What our vaginas do is okay and natural and normal, and we can have conversations about them. Periods are nothing to be ashamed of. Bladder leaking is extremely common. And we need to start having dialogues about these to break this culture of shame. We don't have to advertise the fact that we're on our period if we don't want to, but we really, honestly need to break this culture where we're feeling like we have to keep it a secret all the time. So that's number one. Number two, what are we going to do? We're going to switch to some more sustainable options so we can just lower our environmental impact. The first option, free flow. Okay, so just joking, but this is a real thing. There are women around the world who actually do choose to free flow and not use any product, just free flow the menstruation. This is likely not going to work for you within your work context. So what we would then be talking about is a reusable cup with a silicone cup, reusable pads or period undies. I'm not going to focus massively on the cup in the next section of this workshop because I don't currently use a cup. I used one before my son was born, but after the birth, it just didn't work for me anymore, and I discovered the pads, which are fantastic to either use with the cup or as opposed to the cup. But all of these are fantastic choices. Then if we look at the benefits of using reusables, so benefits are going to be to limit your exposure to chemicals and synthetic fragrances, radically lower your environmental impact and the use of single-use plastics. You're going to be saving money over time. You'll not have glue strips in your underwear anymore. I'm so glad to be over that. And then your reusable pads, for instance, don't have this crinkly, or if you're using the reusable period undies, you don't have that crinkly plastic feeling of disposables, but they feel more like just part of your clothing. Then we're talking about care. So if you're going to be using a silicone cup, you literally just wash it according to the instructions on the packaging from the company that you bought it. You wash and reuse. We will rather talk here a little bit about if you're using pads, or the same will then apply to period underwear. So pads care, how do you actually do it? It's really not complicated. I highly recommend having a wet bag. This is my small sized wet bag, or this is the medium sized wet bag. So what I have is I have one of the medium sized wet bags just hanging in my bathroom. It's made from PUL fabric, which is a water resistant fabric used in cloth diapers. And so what you're going to do, if you're going to be washing often, if you are, for instance, wearing pads or liners daily, you might be washing them very often with the rest of your washing. Then they can go directly into the wet bag and from there into the washing machine. Alternatively, if you're like me, who likes to wash at the end of your period, so maybe you're going to be menstruating for 5 days or 6 days, then what you're going to do, if you want to wash them at the end of the menstruation, I would recommend actually rinsing the pad. So once you've used it, remove it, just rinse it in the basin, hang it up to dry, and from there it can go into the wet bag where it just lives until you're done on your period, and then bang it all into the washing machine. You can see the little picture there with the pads clipped together. You don't need a lot of space in your bathroom to hang them to dry. You can just literally clip them all together like that in one long string, hang it over the edge of your towel rail or shower to dry, and then from there into the wet bag. When it comes to washing day, you just need to wash once on 60 degrees Celsius. Wash with a perfume-free detergent. Don't use softeners. There are many reasons not to use softeners, but when we are talking from pads, and the same goes for cloth diapers, you don't want to use softeners because they will actually impair the absorption of the pads over time. And then hang to dry if possible. So pads on the go, pads, period undies, similar solution. Once again, wet bag. This is my mini wet bag. They're really small and can just fit very easy into your handbag or your pocket. And then what I would normally do is, if I've used a pad, some of the pads, not all of them, but can actually fold up. You just, if this is the top of the pad where you've bled into or leaked into, whatever you've done into that pad, you're just going to fold them up and then actually use the snaps on the pad to just create like a little pad sandwich like that. So it's all wrapped up. You pop it inside the mini wet bag, you put that sucker into your handbag or pocket, and then you're going to deal with it when you get home. But that's how you do it on the go. Same with period undies, just pop them in the little wet bag and continue with your day. Then when you start looking at choosing a pad, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. I do like offering choice. So if you do end up looking at my website at some point, you'll see that I've offered a very wide variety of different shapes and absorbencies of pads. So I just want to talk a little bit quickly about how to actually choose a pad. So the first thing is shape. One of the differences of using cloth pads as opposed to disposable pads is disposable, when it has the glue on it, you just stick it wherever you need it to be in your underwear. And I remember from when I used to use disposable pads, I just knew, sort of slightly to the front, you just stick it in. If you don't think further about it, you just know where in your underwear to stick it and continue. When you start using reusable pads, though, they don't have glue strips, so they're always going to sit the snapped area. So I'm just going to show you this. Once you snap the pad together, just snaps around your underwear. But the area directly over the snapped line will always sit in the narrowest part of your underwear, in the gusset line. And then how you're going to choose your shape of pad is always in relation to that snapped fixed line. If you can imagine, that's a fixed line in your underwear, it doesn't move. Some women bleed further to the front of that line, some women bleed around that line, or middle bleeders, some further to the back. The same goes for nighttime. When you're going to be sleeping, you might need, like this is a Diva pad. It's got a big absorbency to the front and the back, so that you've got the cover. If you're lying on your back, you've got cover that way. If you're lying on your front, on your tummy, you've got cover that way. But during the day, when you're mostly upright, you might only need cover toward the front and not so much toward the back. So you really only need to try one cloth pad, snap into your underwear, bleed into that sucker to know exactly where on the pad in relation to the snapped line you're going to need most of your cover. So that's why some of them are asymmetrical, why some have more absorbency or less absorbency in relation to the snaps. Then you've got different lengths of pads depending on how far forward or how far back you need the cover. Some women don't necessarily, like for me, this is my Melody pad. This is my go-to pad when I'm on my period during the day because I bleed quite far to the front. I don't need a lot of absorption space toward the back during the day. Some women like, even if they don't need to bleed there, they like the feeling of having more pad. It just makes them feel safer, I suppose. So it's a personal choice as well. And then the different sizes, like this, for instance, is the deluxe pad. This is very good postpartum or nighttime, my heaviest period night. This is my go-to pad. And then some heavy pads, and then all the way down to the smallest pad. This is a little liner. So then the other option when you come to pads is whether you're going to have a straight pad. This one, when it's snapped, you can see that the shape of the pad is actually straight. I make these because they seem familiar to women who are starting with reusable pads. They are reminiscent of some of the disposables that might feel familiar. The other option is to have pads that have a curve in. I always rather recommend these. These are my favorites because the curve in itself really helps to keep the pad in place and keep it from shifting around. The best way to find which pads you need is to just try one. Or try a couple and see which and where in relation to the snap line you're going to be bleeding. You can always measure and choose from there. That's how to choose a pad. And then very quickly, we're going to look at how to make a pad. So for those of you who want to DIY this, it might be good for you to know that you can actually make them quite easily from things that you already have around home. It's really not a complicated process. What you want to do is, first of all, you're going to choose your top layer. I like using 100% cotton. That's the one that's going to be closest to your skin. You could use a cotton dress. You could use a t-shirt. You want to make sure that it is a fabric that's not going to block your liquids from going through. So natural fiber, 100% cotton is a good choice. Then what you're going to do is you're going to choose your pad shape. You can either make your own pattern by tracing over other pad. Just make sure that your wings are cut longer so that they can overlap each other. Alternatively, what you can do is just look on Etsy. There are a lot of different makers who sell sanitary pad patterns very inexpensively. So get yourself a nice pattern. They often come with different options on sizes. So each pattern that you buy might have a variation of different sizes you can cut it to. Then you're going to work on the back of your top layer of fabric. Trace the pattern down onto the fabric and just cut it out roughly. The next step is going to be the absorbent core, the absorbent inner. I really like using 100% cotton flannel. You could use, if you're upcycling, you could use an old towel, old tea towel, whatever is really absorbent. You're going to cut that out in as many layers as you need for your absorption needs, and then stitch it around. This one is just a zigzag. The next to hold all of those layers of fabric together. The next step is going to be to actually sew that absorbent core onto the back of your top layer of fabric. So some people, when they make pads, like to have a completely waterproof layer in, some don't. I choose to put 100% waterproof layer into all of my pads because of what I mentioned before. If 2/3 of women are going to be dealing with urinary leakage at some point, I want to make sure that all of my pads are going to work for menstruation. They're also going to be working for catching any urine leaks or any other kind of discharge you might be dealing with. Always think that urine, like water, is a thinner consistency than blood. If you're just going to be using it for menstruation, you could get away without a waterproof layer. But if you wanted to deal with any kind of urine leakage as well, waterproof layer. And if you've got a waterproof layer in there, you definitely don't want to stitch through it because the little stitch holes are going to cause leakage. That's why you're going to take your absorbent core You're going to stitch it onto the back of your top layer so that it's floating really inside the pad. The next step that you're going to do is to choose the fabric that you want at the back of the pad. So all of my pads that I am making have a black layer at the back. That's just so that it's easy for people to know which side goes down. Black side down, pretty side up. But I use 100% cotton flannel for the back layer. I really do recommend using flannel if you can. So you can cut up old flannel pajamas, or old winter sheet is often made from cotton flannel. The flannel creates a little bit of a grippy surface that helps. It's just another way of helping the pad to stay in place. But either way, you choose the fabric that you want to have for the back layer. And then what you're going to do is you're going to actually put it face to face. So you've got your top layer with the absorbency stitched onto it, face down, onto the back layer with a face up. So they're face to face. Then if you're going to be using a waterproof layer like I do in my pads, you're going to put that on the back. So the most commonly used waterproof layer in pads is PUL. It's the same fabric used in the wet bags. It's the same fabric used in most modern cloth diapers. If you can't get your hands on PUL, you can use the waterproof sheeting that's often used when you're toilet training babies. You can upcycle one of those. But that's going to go onto the back. You're going to pin this all together like a little sandwich. Then the next step, what you're going to do is actually going to just straight stitch all along the line that you traced originally, leaving one space, which will be your turn hole, because you need to turn this pad inside out at some point. So once you've stitched all around, and this is an example where I've done that, you trim all around the edges, quite close to the stitching, and then you can see how I've cut it into the corners. That's to make sure that when you actually flip the pad inside out, it doesn't pull too much into the corners. And around the corners here, I just also cut little bite out. From there, what you're going to do is you're actually going to take this pad, and I won't do it completely now because it's sometimes a bit fiddly, but you've got a turn hole, and you're going to actually take the pad and you're going to pull it through. This is like literally like a pad giving birth. So sometimes I'm cursing myself for making these turn holes small. But the whole pad gets pulled through that turn hole. I'm going to pause it at this point, you get the idea, but it's going to come through. It's going to pop out. It won't look like this straight away. I use a chopstick to go back into that turn hole and to just push up to get the pad out in all the corners. So once you've got it looking like a pad, what you're going to do is just fold the extra fabric in around the turn hole. So you've got the hole exposed there. And then you're going to do another round of stitching all around the edge, which is going to hold the pad nice and flat in place, and it's going to close the turn hole. After that, all what's really left to do is to attach your snaps. I use, this is a Prim snap pliers. So you're going to make a hole with a pokey thing and attach your snaps. If you don't have access to snaps, you can hand sew on some Velcro. I've managed to do that quite successfully. So that is an option. Alternatively, you've got the snaps that are just going to snap on around your undies. That is how you make a pad. Linnea, presentation just disappeared.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, guys, we're back in.
Yes, so that's how you make a pad. Alternatively, if you're not a sewer, if you're not interested in sewing, or just don't have the time, welcome to visit my website, ecomini.se. I've put together, you'll see all of my pads there. I've put together Eco Evo trial pack, which is just a nice little selection of pads to try. Remember to grab some little wet bag just for on the go, and possibly a wet bag to store the pads in at home. Otherwise, you're welcome to contact me anytime. I am always happy to advise and help. I am really passionate about getting as many as possible women to switch to reusable pads, or at least some kind of reusable option over disposable. So reach out. I love having dialogue on this topic. Yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Wonderful to hear. And don't you just love the patterns on those sustainable options? If you guys want to know more, we have an upcoming event this Thursday on the 11th of March at 7. We have a couple of students over at KTH who's done a study about menstrual cup versus tampon, an environmental comparison. It's also a free online event, so head on over to Facebook and register there for your spot. If you guys want to know more about us and get more involved in Zero Waste Association, we are happy to have you. We have spaces for volunteers to help us out, make a difference, and we have different working groups that you can become a part of. Also join our Zero Waste community by becoming a member. As a member, you get discounts on all of our sponsors, different products that we have, and as well as partake in the upcoming annual membership assembly. Head on over to our website, we can find in the chat, and you can read more about us. Sorry for taking a few minutes over time here, guys. Thank you so much for listening in on this lunchtime workshop. And thanks again to Nikki for that wonderful session. If you have any questions, let us know. I'm going to have a look there at the Q&A. If you've left anything, let's see.
We do have one question from Anne Chow.
Yes. Can you see the question?
If you can unmute yourself, I believe you have a question about the cup.
Yes. Could you recommend which brand of the cup is the best in the market, in the Sweden market?
I'm not familiar with that many brands. I don't know about you, Nikki.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not very familiar with many different brands on that one. Yeah.
There are different. I can say there are different shapes of cups and sizes, and you should check which one works better for you. I don't think it's about the brand. It's more about the shape and the size that works best for you.
That's true too. I bought one in France. I bought the small one, but I think I encounter a lot of problem when I put it into my vagina during my period. Yeah, I find it's difficult to take it out, and I think that's the problem. Maybe I'm not used to use that. So.
Definitely see if you can find another one that might fit you better. If not, please try a sustainable option for a pad if you're not too uncomfortable. That also might work. Yeah.
Maybe I can add something here. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to take it out because it kind of creates some like a vacuum effect. I don't know if you know that. So you kind of have to fold it inside you before removing it. You have to break the vacuum. And then it comes out easily, at least in my opinion.
Okay.
Otherwise, it kind of hurts too if you don't break the vacuum. True. Yeah. I don't know if that's your problem, but I don't know. It's a bit different for everyone, I think.
Thank you.
I think you could Google. I know that at least in Swedish there is a page where they sell different kinds, and you can contact them pretty much like Nikki does with the cloth pads, and you can ask if I have this problem, what should I use? So they can recommend another cup, and they can also help you with like, okay, so yeah, there's a lot of like pictures of techniques and stuff like that. So try and Google and see if you can find a page like that that's not in Swedish.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frida.
Any other questions, guys? Any thoughts or comments? Let us know.
My comment is that the pads are great and I like them better than the cup. But sometimes also the cup is nice to have.
Definitely. If it works for you, alternate between the two, whatever
Yeah.
fits you best, definitely. Okay, I don't think we're any more questions. Thank you so much, guys.
Hello, I have one comment.
Hi.
Hi, this is Akiko from Skåne. I just want to say to Nikki that I have been using that more than 20 years, and I have extra cotton over the pad sometimes when it's really a lot of blood. So just a comment I wanted to make.
Yes, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for the good presentation. It's really nice.
It's good to have you, Anne. Pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akiko.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for today. Please keep a lookout on the social media for upcoming events. As I mentioned, on Thursday night, if you're free, head on over to our website to see more about our upcoming presentation. And thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your lunch.
And one last comment from me.
Yes, of course.
Talk about your periods.
Yes, very
and talk
important.
about the things that our vaginas do. Let's break the silence.
Definitely, break the stigma. Be proud.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye.